Hi, I'm going to be explaining how charity handling has changed in version 2.8, that is the latest version of EasyCare. And for this, we'll start by looking at a receipt which was created earlier. You can see on the left side the old version of the receipt. The charity is assigned at the bottom. After all the billing is done, above you see all the line items, a total of 227.96, and then the charity is allocated. In the new version, on the other hand, you see that the charity is present at the line item level itself to give a total of 28.05, and there is no further charity being shown at the total level. This is the major change, and you can see that the taxable value is reduced by the amount of the charity. Now the question is, why did the charity reduce from 30 to 28.05? On the left, we show a calculation that we were using earlier, where the GST is directly added to the cost of the item, and once the total amount is computed, then a charity is allocated. In this case, somebody wants to give 40% charity, and that comes to 44 rupees to produce a net payable of 66. But in the newer version, we allocate charity before computing GST. We grant the charity 40% on the cost, and then the taxable value becomes 60. Because the taxable value is less, the GST is also less. And since the charity was applied on the cost before the GST was added, the charity was also less. But you see, we get the same result of 66 rupees. So this is the correct way of granting charity to any item. The charity should be granted before the GST is computed. And therefore, this change carries over to the one-off charity report. You can see that original charity of 30 rupees comes out to 28.05, and both values are shown in the new charity report. One under concession given and one under concession used. But mind you, these values will be different only for old receipts. For new receipts, that will not happen. The changes in the revenue report can be seen here. In the older version, you can see that GST was given after, GST was given before charity, and now it is given after charity, and therefore in the older version you had a higher GST amount and a higher charity amount, and in the newer version you have a lower GST amount and a lower charity amount, but both of them are producing the same result in terms of cash, because as we have already seen, the difference is only in terms of the charity, in terms of the GST calculation. The difference in the charity is given on a Q-tip. If you click on the small I, it will show you what the older value was and how it's different. For those using the cash-based revenue report, the differences are much lesser because the cash-based report was already reducing the charity before computing the GST. The difference is only due to fine-tuning of the round-off logic, and you can see that there is a difference in the round-off logic in this case, and that difference is also shown by the Q-tip when you click on the Q-tip. So there isn't a big change here. Now we look at the options for granting charity on the screen for the user, and we look at a couple of inpatients to see what are the different ways of granting charity. I find a patient number from the current inpatient list, and on the charity screen we can see that we have right on top here, we have a category wise charity entry screen. You can enter charity for lab, for example. In this case, I'm entering 250 rupees for the lab. Or you can enter it for any other category. The amount that you enter in the category comes down in the total below. In the same way, fund amounts can also be entered here. So I enter 50 rupees against fund for procedure charges, and that also is totaled up in the field at the bottom. I am going to enter some charity for some other categories also, and as you can see, everything is totaled up at the bottom, and the total charity is 1351.59, which you can see here, and the total fund is 50, which can also be seen here. And you can see that the original GST was 276.2, which has now been reduced because of the charity that's been given, and the net payable comes out to 5,630 after reducing the available balance of 3,000. I proceed to enter the charity reason, select the name of the fund, and enter the approver's name, and I go ahead and grant the charity. And so this is one way of granting charity, where we entered everything at a category level. Now we'll see an alternate way of entering charity. I find another patient and I open that patient's screen, and this is what we already saw, the category wise view. The category wise view can be further broken down into a detailed line wise view. So here, instead of granting charity for the whole of lab, I could choose to grant charity for one of the items under lab, and in this way I can grant charity for any item, any single item on the whole bill. And just like before, the totals will reflect at the bottom of the page at the page level fields. Alternately, I can also enter charity at the bottom because I'm not really worried about which item or which category it goes to. So I enter the amount 1500 as charity, and I click on apply, and the charity is applied, and once again you can see that the GST amount is reduced, and the total payable amount accordingly comes down. It was 18,879.83 earlier, and now it has come down. I'll now take another patient, and I'll demonstrate a third way of entering charity, and this is probably going to be the most common scenario. In this case, you know beforehand how much you want to refund, how much the patient can pay. I'm skipping that bill because the patient already had a positive balance. So let's look at a scenario where the patient doesn't have a positive balance. So here I know that this patient has a bill of about 11,769 and an available balance of 4,000, so a net payable of 7,769.47, and I know that this patient cannot pay this much. So I am going to enter what I think the patient, or rather what I have found out that the patient can pay, and then I'll compute the charity according to that. So I enter the amount of 5,000, which is what the patient can pay, and as you can see, there's already an available balance of 4,000, so there's another 1,000 that the patient can pay, and accordingly the charity for the patient becomes 6514.98. And again, you can see that there's a reduction in the GST. I go in and grant the charity. So now this patient will pay 5,000 as expected. So this is the most common scenario. Charity in registration, I'll just demonstrate how charity can be given in registration. So earlier, without any additional permission, all registration users could give charity, but now a permission is needed. Charity in registration, and you come to the same sort of screen, and you again have all the options as before to decide how much charity to give and how to enter it. And once that charity is entered, you can see that the total amount reduced. And now on the billing screen, I'd like to demonstrate how charity can be entered for an outpatient. And I just bill the outpatient whom I just registered, and click on grant charity, and you can see that we once again have the exact same kind of screen. So there are multiple ways of entering charity and fund for a patient at a total level, at a category level, or at an item level. Or one can even enter patient can pay amounts and compute the charity. Pay later remains the same as before. In this new approach towards charity, the most important thing is that we get an exact match with the GSTR1 report. It's much easier and simpler handling of GST. What you see on the receipt is what gets totaled up. There is no allocation from a total charity into the line items. We just total up whatever was given. Plus, we can now refund charity items because charity is at line item level, and we have a single charity entry method across the application. And we have already seen that there are multiple options to enter charity. So that's it for now. We will be coming up with more training videos, and this is just to give you a primer of what it will look like.